Hi everyone and welcome. I hope everyone is well and ready for today's webinar. Today, Giles Garnett, the Head of Professional Services, will talk about the best practices for putting your lead generation on autopilot. Head of Customer Support, Gintarė Kuzminskaitė, will be running the live chat. At the end of our webinar, we will have Q&A with Giles. Thank you, and back to you, Giles.
Thank you, Jin. Hello and good morning, good afternoon or good evening to everyone joining today's Dux-Soup webinar. Our third, I think, of the year. I think it's the third one. I've kind of lost count now already. Anyway, thank you to Jin for the introduction. Firstly, to those who are new to Dux-Soup, the Dux-Soup webinars, my name is Giles Garnett. I'm Head of Professional Services here at Dux-Soup. You'll get to speak to me if you book any of the technical or booster calls, and I do cover some of the support calls as well. As you also now are aware, I present the fortnightly webinars for Dux-Soup. So today we're going to present a topic to assist you in your lead generation activities, and we'll be addressing, we're sort of focusing on a checklist of sort of 10 best practices for putting your lead generation activities onto autopilot with Dux-Soup and making the most of the tools available. And while I'm talking and presenting, Jin, who you've just heard from, your Head of Customer Support at Dux-Soup, will be doing her absolute best to keep up with all your questions on the chat. So as always, please be patient and give her time to answer, and try to keep the questions on topic so they're useful for the rest of the audience. If you've got questions related to other aspects of Dux-Soup, you can always visit the Dux-Soup support pages and use the live chat function there, where those questions will be addressed in due course. As always, the webinar today will be recorded and available to everyone afterwards. The recording will be made available on our website and the Dux-Soup YouTube channel, alongside all of our previous content. What I'm going to do today is go through a number of slides outlining our sort of 10 best practices for maximizing the use of Dux-Soup, and then I'll go into a brief demo to sort of illustrate some of those things, sort of revisiting the list that I've been through. And yeah, let's crack on. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. As always, we have a bit of a mixture of Dux-Soup users here, so some new, some more experienced. So just a very quick introduction for Dux-Soup for anyone who is brand new to the platform. Dux-Soup is a Chrome extension, which when used in conjunction with LinkedIn can assist you with automating your LinkedIn lead generation activities. You can send automated invites with personalized messages. You can search, filter, and target with Dux-Soup tags. You can auto message your first degree connections, and you can download data. With the turbo, those are pro features, and then the words in italics here.
Sorry, Giles. Are you sharing slides? Because I can only see Dux-Soup logo at the moment.
Oh,
probably the wrong screen.
Let's see what's going on. Hang on one second. I will stop sharing my screen.
No worries.
I'm sharing the wrong one.
Yay,
is that better?
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, dear
Thank
me.
you.
It's been a long week. Apologies. It's only Tuesday. So yes, back to what I was saying there. So yeah, you can automate your LinkedIn lead generation activities. You can auto invite with personalized messages. You can search, filter, and target with Dux-Soup tags. And you can auto message your first degree connections and download your data. And those are pro features. And then the bottom three here, which makes sense now that you can see my screen, hopefully. You can send automated follow-up messages. You can track your stats with the funnel flow, which we'll talk about later. And you can integrate into other systems using the webhook functionality and the API that is available with Turbo. Before we get on to the actual checklist, there's one thing that you should always pay very close attention to when you're using LinkedIn for lead generation, and that is your own personal profile page. It's your own personal advert, and with over 700 million users of LinkedIn, it's of paramount importance that you have a professional, relevant photograph, you make use of the background, and you put a bit of effort into your headline, because when you view someone's profile, in the notification that they get, they will see your headline. So pay attention to that as you go through. Now, Today, we're going to look at the lead generation flow. We're going to look at the overall lead generation process and pick out some highlights from this particular flow. We have the discover phase, so how to identify your leads, how you can do that most effectively. We have the connect phase, using tactics for connecting with prospects. Then we have the engagement phase, how to engage or re-engage with your prospects. And then, of course, we have routing leads to sales, what to do with your leads to actually convert them into sales. And as always, you always have the option to qualify leads out if they are not actually applicable. To mirror this, one of the new features that was launched last year with Dux-Soup, and this is available for Dux-Soup Turbo users, we have the under the Dux dash, we have the funnel flow. And this is something I'll go into in a lot more detail later. This helps you to manage your LinkedIn prospects from within Dux-Soup, following the same model as I just showed you. You can see how many prospects you've visited over a set period of time, how many you've invited, and indeed how many have accepted and responded, and how many follow-ups have been sent out if you're using the follow-up options. So enough of the preamble, let's get on with our list. So under the discover phase, the more time you spend in defining the people that you want to target with the correct approach, the more successful you will be with your outreach. It's really important to put the effort in upfront to improve your chances of finding valuable and relevant targets. So one of the most important things that we think you should do is make use of the search filters and Boolean terms within LinkedIn. It's a very powerful feature of LinkedIn searches, and if you can use these Boolean expressions, the or and not expressions there, you can really broaden or limit or narrow down and make your results much more relevant to your target audience. Here, this is a very high-level overview of what you can do with Boolean searches. I would advise you to have a look. We produced a webinar last year on searching and filtering. We did a searching and filtering masterclass, which I think we'll be revisiting at some point again this year. And in the demo a little bit later, I'll just show you from a very high level how this works and how you can narrow down your searches accordingly. You also have the Dux-Soup skipping options. Remember, within LinkedIn, you have certain capacities. You can visit so many profiles per day, etc., etc. There are limits as to what you can do. And within Dux-Soup, we have the skipping options, which allow you to maximize, make the most of your profile visits by perhaps using the regular expression tool that's there. Again, I'll touch on that later during my demonstration. So searches and filtering and making use of the Boolean expressions is a really, really top tip there for narrowing down your search lists. And that comes on to my second one here under the discover phase, the lists. Dux-Soup runs automated actions against what we call lists. And when the Dux-Soup icon turns green, so you know you have the Dux-Soup icon in the top right-hand corner for your extension, that means it's ready to carry out automated actions. And these are examples of some lists. So you can have your search alerts from Sales Navigator, from saved searches. You can look at groups or alumni lists or people who've viewed your profile, even likes or reactions or shared contacts. You can create a list out of any of these things, and Dux-Soup will carry out an automated action against that list as you've defined it. And when we say an automated action, that could include a visit profile, it could be a visit and connect, or indeed scanning that list to extract more data. So decide on where you think you can find the correct target audience and make use of the power of Dux-Soup against these lists, depending on where you think your optimal target audience resides. That's something very important to think about there as well. If we now move on to the connect phase of our lead generation activity, and we talk about more the philosophy of how to connect with our prospects. And what you can do with Dux-Soup is send out a personalized connection message. So when reaching out to your new connections, adding a personalized message vastly increases your chances of someone accepting your invitation. So try to link your message to how you found them, i.e. from the search criteria or from the list, or maybe it was a geographical search, something like that. Give the impression that you actually made the effort to look at their profile. And as you can see here on this is from the Dux-Soup options under the actions tab. Make use of these markers here to make it look personal. One thing is important to remember if you're using the markers especially, don't forget the character limit. That's a LinkedIn limitation, this 300 characters. If you're using the markers here and you've used up 298 of your characters, if someone has a long first name, you will find that your message will be truncated. So be aware of that and make sure that you make the most of that, that opportunity there to put in the text you need. It's amazing the difference it makes to the conversion rate of connection requests in putting in what looks like a personalized message. We'll now move to number 4, under the connect under the connect phase, and that's around safety. LinkedIn has a strict policy when it comes to how you connect with people. And if a person keeps ignoring your connection request or perhaps even ticks the I don't know this person, it can cause LinkedIn to place some sort of a restriction on your account. Unfortunately, there are no hard and fast rules set by LinkedIn for the number of connection requests you can send. But as our guide, based upon our 7 years of experience of running Dux-Soup and all of our users and the feedback that we gather and from all the testing we carried out, we advise sending no more than between 3 and 5% of the number of all of your first degree connections. We also recommend that you don't suddenly start sending 50 connection requests every day for 30 days, because that would be a massive sudden change to the behavior in your account. So build up slowly, start with maybe 10, 15, 25 requests per day and gradually increase this number as you go. I think it was a month ago we did a webinar on keeping your account safe with Dux-Soup, and these are some of the factors that you should consider to take into consideration when trying to keep your account safe within LinkedIn. I think I've probably touched on most of these already, and they're all pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. One thing that it's worth keeping an eye on is your social selling index. That's visible under your profile details if you have a Sales Navigator account, and that gives you sort of your credibility on the LinkedIn platform, and that's based upon your behavior and your contribution towards the network. There's a rating out of 100, and it's very dynamic. If you carry out an activity, if you respond to posts, if you post articles, for example, and you get a lot of reactions, you will see that number change dynamically. So these are things to take into consideration to keep your account safe. Now, under the connect phase as well, one of our top tips is to make use of the revisit data tool. And I will demonstrate this a little bit later on during the demo of Dux-Soup as well. Now, as I've mentioned, LinkedIn provides a variety of filtering options that you can use to build up your target audience. However, you may want to manually choose the people that you want to connect with. And while Dux-Soup profile visits or visit and connect is the option that most people use by default, these two here, visit profiles and visit and connect, you also have the scan profiles option here in the drop box, under the drop-down box, and using Dux-Soup's revisit data tool, they're a really handy combination when it comes to selecting the people for further engagement with Dux-Soup. So when you found or created your list on LinkedIn, click on the Dux-Soup icon and select scan profiles. And when you finish scanning the list, and you can scan hundreds, even thousands of profiles, because you're not clicking on a profile, all Dux-Soup is doing is skimming off the high-level code from the page that you're looking at. You can then download that list. So you go to your download data button here in the top right, you download your scan data, and that creates a CSV file. You can then edit that data, so you can delete prospects from that list and basically come up with a customized list of people that you want to reach out to. And then by using the revisit data button, this one here, you can then upload your CSV file and get Dux-Soup to process your automated actions against that customized defined list. It's a really, really powerful part of Dux-Soup and is used by a lot of people to control exactly who they reach out to, and to control exactly how many activities, how many profile views and connection requests people send out per day. You're not then beholden to the search result from a LinkedIn list. You can actually define and upload however many profiles you want to Dux-Soup to process. So now that you've sent your connection requests and hopefully people have responded to your connection request positively, hopefully, you now need to take your new connections to the next stage in your process, and that's your engagement phase. With Dux-Soup, you can use first-degree messaging to automate your messaging here. You can perhaps use the scan, edit, revisit, and custom markers to personalize your messages. In the same way you've got the custom marker or the markers with your messages, you can also use custom markers in your messages and add additional text into your messaging. We've demonstrated this in some webinars last year, and I expect we'll be revisiting that one again in the coming months. One of the most important things to do when direct messaging is have a plan and a strategy. Make use of the Dux-Soup tagging system. I'll try and remember to demonstrate that a little bit later as well. It helps you to categorize your prospects according to your customized tags, maybe by location or profession or industry. And then you can measure the effectiveness of your approach. When you're coming up with how to engage with your prospects, think about how you would like to be approached. What would work if people were approaching you? Try and put yourself in your prospect shoes and think about your strategies as to how that would work. If we move further on in the engagement phase, if you want to, for example, with Dux-Soup Turbo, you can extend your lead generation process by designing and executing an automated drip campaign to your new LinkedIn connections. Automating this phase can save valuable time, and with Turbo you can automate up to 5 post-connection messages to your new connections or to your new contacts. And Dux-Soup Turbo automatically runs the campaign and stops when the time is right for one-to-one follow-up. So if somebody responds to you, they would no longer get a further message in the flow, as long as all of the systems are up and set up correctly. For a full visibility of your status of your leads, you can then also use the the funnel flow, which I'll show to you in a second. So you can see here, this is under the automated actions tab. If you've got Turbo, this is where you can define the delays for your messaging and indeed write your customized automated follow-up messages to your new contacts. So in phase 8, in the eighth bullet that we would like to talk about here is where we're moving leads to sales. I've got that one the wrong way around. That's a slight error on my part there, never mind. We now talk about the funnel flow. In the Dux-Dash, you can monitor and control your LinkedIn prospecting within the funnel flow. And this gives you instant insight into the performance of your lead generation funnel. So you can have instant access to your prospects information and responses. And I will demonstrate this shortly as well. You have direct control of the progression of prospects in the funnel. A couple of features that I will touch on here when I'm demoing is the possibility to qualify in and out of LinkedIn prospects who've responded to your follow-up or drip campaigns, and also the possibility to reflow, to reintroduce them into your drip campaign if, for example, they've just sent an acknowledgement or a thumbs up, for example. But I'll demonstrate that one a little bit more in detail from some real life examples in a minute. Under 9, this is where we can move our leads into, for example, a CRM. We currently have a direct integration with Pipedrive CRM, and that was launched last year. You can create new contacts from LinkedIn profile views and CRM activities from new connections, or indeed from inbound LinkedIn messages. So you'd have an activity list there prompting you when somebody has responded to you in your CRM, and you can start to manage your activities directly from your CRM rather than having to constantly go backwards and forwards between the two. Other CRMs you can integrate via Zapier or Integromat, and indeed there are more direct integrations coming soon. The next on the list is a direct integration with HubSpot. And then finally, number 10, lead to sales for other tools. So via Zapier or Integromat, you can use any data scraped from LinkedIn with Dux-Soup with any other integrated tool. So some of the examples that we look at with our customers quite a lot include HubSpot CRM, Zoho, Google Sheets, Slack, MailChimp, etc., etc. And what you can see here is an example of a process flow that's fairly common with our users. They would carry out a visit to a second or third degree connection in LinkedIn. They'd send a connection request. At that stage, when the connection request is accepted, at that stage, they would then trigger an auto view from within, from outside. So that would be through Zapier or Integromat. That would create an auto visit to their new connection, because when somebody moves from being a second or third degree connection to being a first degree connection, that's when the data becomes more interesting. You can see more contact information about those people. So you'd trigger a revisit to gather their details. And at that stage, that visits data from that activity would be sent to your CRM or database or Google Sheet or wherever. So if I very quickly now summarize there, we've got the discover phase with the filters and Boolean, we've got the lists, the connect phase with the connection messages, the safety and the revisit tool, the engagement phase with direct messaging and drip campaign, and then leads to sales, the funnel flow, the CRM data enrichment, and then other integrated tools. What I'd like to do now very quickly, hopefully, is quickly demonstrate some of these things in real life. So what I've got here is, hopefully everyone can see this. If I zoom in a fraction, I know that that's not such a problem with GoToWebinar as it was with our previous tool. So what I've got here is I've done a search for second degree connections. If I put in here, for example, just director, and you can do this in standard LinkedIn or indeed in Sales Navigator. If I put in here second degree connections and director based in the Netherlands, you can see I get around 30,000 results. But if I now use the Boolean search options and I put in here director, not manager, you'll see that this will then narrow my search result down to about 8,900. Now, bear in mind, there are limitations with LinkedIn search results. Here in standard LinkedIn, if you carry out a search, you get 10 results on a page, and you only get to see the first 100 pages. So it's always really important when you're carrying out your searches in standard LinkedIn to keep your results under 1,000. Otherwise, you just can't see the whole result. Also, you can make use of all the other filters that are available here as well. So you can narrow your search down, familiarize yourself with these different options, because this will help you to narrow down various things and optimize your search. You can use all sorts of different phrases when you're using your Boolean searches, but this just gives you an example as to how to narrow down a search very quickly. In Sales Navigator, if I carry out a search here, it's very similar. You get a lot more search filters within Sales Navigator. You get in the keywords you can use, for example, the Boolean search terms as well there. One of the big things that you can do within Sales Navigator, which some people aren't aware of, is, let's just scroll down, is you can search within groups without being a member of a group. So that's quite a useful thing. In standard LinkedIn, you have to be a member of a group to be able to see the population of that group. But here in Sales Navigator, if I put in here, for example, if I put in engineering in motion, for example, I'm not a member of that group, but I can see the people who are in there. Now I've got my other search filters on there, which is why nothing's come up, but I can look at the population of groups within Sales Navigator without being a member of that group. So that's a really powerful way of looking at people with certain interests in Sales Navigator. So that's an example of how you can look at a list there. If we think about the other lists that we talked about alumni lists. So for example, here in the search things, if I type in here, University of Oxford, if I go to Oxford University here, if I go to the alumni list here within the University of Oxford, I can narrow down my years here. But what you'll notice in a second is that Dux-Soup will recognize this as a list. It'll say, yep, I can process this, I've turned green, I'm ready to run. But you can then, of course, add a lot more filters here according to what you want, by location, where they work, what they do, what they studied, etc., etc. And yeah, you can then run Dux-Soup against this list here. When I say run Dux-Soup, I mean you can, as always, you can visit profiles, you can visit and connect to profiles, or indeed you can scan profiles, which we talked about earlier. Another really powerful one when it comes to lists. Oh no, if I go to my home page, if I look at, for example, an article on here, and I see that 88 people have reacted to this article, if I press that 88 button, this list pops up. I can now run Dux-Soup against this list as well. And here I can visit and connect, or indeed scan this list. All of these things are really useful sources of places to pick up data from people who have a certain interest or have reacted to a post which may have a similar interest to you. If we go to our connection request messages then, very quickly, open the Dux-Soup icon. I'm going to go to my options here in the top right. If I open up my Dux-Soup options here, I have the option to type in my customized message, and I can type in my message here and use the custom markers here. So it would pull out the first name of the person. I can then write my message, and as I mentioned earlier, you have the character limit here. Just bear that in mind, especially when using the custom markers, but think about making that message personalized insofar as related to how you found the person's profile in the first place. It's really important. When I talk about safety, one of the things you can use here with Dux-Soup is the throttling options here. You can choose the speed that the robot runs at. You can define exactly how many connection requests and how many direct messages you're going to send out per day. Dux-Soup will calculate accordingly if you leave it, it will calculate according to the type of profile you have. If you leave it as the default, you do have the opportunity to override that. That's at your own risk, of course, with the number of profile visits you carry out. But yeah, pay attention to that. And when you're starting out, start slowly and use this in conjunction with the planner. Make sure that you're using the planner to plan your day and to be sure when you're happy for the robot to do things on your behalf. You don't want the planner, you don't want the robot to be running with activities while you're doing things manually, because that may look to LinkedIn like there's more than one person on your account at any one time. And of course, we don't want that. You might get kicked out, you might get logged out, and then you need to start all over again, where you need to log back in and kick off again. We'll talk about the revisit tool very quickly. So if I had a list here and I'd scanned this list, I could then revisit this data. I would go to here, I would download my data, and I could then open up that CSV file. Let me just open a CSV file that I've got here from earlier today. So here we are, we have a scan data CSV file here from earlier today. This is a list of people that I scanned earlier. And you can see here the data that you get. This was done from Sales Navigator, so I've got Sales Navigator URLs. I've got the time that I scanned their profile. I've got their ID. I've got first name, middle name, last name, their job title, their company reference number, according to in the LinkedIn database, and their location. Depending on what list you scan, you get slightly different data. So if you scanned a list from within standard LinkedIn, you'd get the standard LinkedIn URL. At the moment, this is the Sales Navigator URL here. And when you've got your CSV file, you've edited it, you've played around with it, you've taken out who you don't want in there, for example, you can then keep it as a CSV file, and then you can go to the revisit data button. This is the one that I talked about earlier. And this is where you can then upload your CSV file for then Dux-Soup to run its automation against. In a second, we'll see the Dux-Soup icon will turn green. It'll say at your service. Any second now. There we go. And now I could run my automation against here. So then I would go to my options and I'd define, well, am I sending them invitations because they're second and third degree connections? Or perhaps, and we'll come on to this again in a second, I want to send them a personalized message because this is a list of first degree connections. And of course, when they're first degree connections, you've got 3,000 characters here to play with because, yeah, you're already connected to them. So again, you've got the markers that you can use here as well. You can also create custom markers here. We've covered that in previous webinars as well, and I think we will be in the coming month or two, how to customize your messaging even further there using by adding additional columns. But if you go to our support pages and look up revisit options, that will show you how you can do that there as well. So we've covered that. We've talked about the revisit tool. We've talked about their personalized direct messages. And now we'll talk about the drip campaigns. So if you've got Turbo, you have the opportunity here to use the automated follow-up messages. And what you can see here is you can define up to 5 messages here. If I just pull in another profile here that I've got here set up, there we go. So what I've got here is another profile that's running. And what we can do here is we can look at our Dux-Soup options. And we've got one here that's sending out a couple of automated follow-up messages automatically. And yeah, so these are being queued up one day after connection and then 3 days after connection. And what I can do then is look at the Dux dash to see those messages in the queue. And if I go here and I looked at my queued activities, we can see here that these are queued up messages due to go to new contacts that have been queued up in the automated follow-ups. We click on the little arrow here and we can see the automated message that's queued up to go after this moment in time. So sometime tomorrow, those messages will go out. And the important thing I'd like to show you here is the funnel flow. And what we can see here in the funnel flow, and this is updated every 5 minutes and it's based upon system tags and is available to Turbo users because that's where you get the automated follow-ups and all of the system tag functionality. You can look at 24 hours, 7 days and 4 weeks. If we look at the 4 weeks option here, so we can see here for this profile, over the last 4 weeks, there's been just over 1,000 people invited. I click on this cell here. In a second, we will then get the list of those people. So here I can see the people that have been invited. And indeed, I can copy and paste this into a spreadsheet using the copy button there. So we can see who's been invited. Over the same period of time, we can see exactly how many people have accepted that invitation as well. Again, we can see that there. We can see how many follow-ups have been sent to that group. And indeed, we can see how many have responded. And the great thing about this is we can also then see the conversation that's been had. So we can see here what messages have been exchanged over that period of time. If I go to the follow-ups here, so it's probably easier to see. We can then see exactly what follow-up messages have been sent here after acceptance. And the other thing we can do is if they have responded and we need to say, well, actually, we still want them to receive the follow-up messages, I can reflow, I can re-enable the automated follow-up messages. By default, if they respond, the automated follow-up messages get put on hold, and then yeah, they don't get any further follow-up messages. But we can then add them back into the flow here, and those messages would continue to go. We can also say qualify them out or qualify those prospects in if that's what we want to do. So we can see here there's a few people here being qualified in, and we would then take those discussions accordingly forward with those prospects. So that's the funnel flow. Just for completeness here on the Dux dash, you have your profile, you have the funnel flow and your queued activities. So the queued activities are the messages that are scheduled to go out in the future. This one here is available to all, both Pro and Turbo users, your activity log. And this is just purely a log of all the actions that have been carried out on your account. So you can see here, these are all invitations that have been sent out from this account here, and you can see exactly when, and you can go back through your history and indeed search who you've sent your invites to. Moving on now to the CRM data enrichment side of things. What you see here is under the CRM connections. I'm not sure if we'll see it on this one. No, we'll go back to mine. Hang on a second. Let's come out of there. Let's go to my Dux dash a second. Here in the bottom right-hand corner, that's how you get to your Dux dash. Under CRM connections, you can hear this is where you can enable your integration with Pipedrive, and indeed in the future we'll see HubSpot in here as well. Sometime in the not too distant future, hopefully, you can then here enable your various options to update Pipedrive from your profile views, activities for inbound messages, and also for LinkedIn connections. And then finally, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we're going to cover this in a lot more detail, I think, in the webinar in 2 weeks' time. We go to your Dux-Soup options again, and this is a turbo feature as well only. Under your Connect tab here, you have the options here to connect to other systems via webhooks. I'm just conscious I've been talking for over half an hour. And you can integrate into Zapier or Integromat, or indeed any other system that uses webhooks. Those are the two that are most commonly used, and we have a direct integration with them insofar as you can trigger remote control activities from within those systems. If I very quickly go back to my slide a second here, this process here that I talked about here is a very common one, and this is where you could, for example, extract email addresses, have it put into MailChimp or your CRM or a Google Sheet or anything else that you wanted as well, using the webhook functionality and the API that's available with Dux-Soup Turbo. You can integrate into any system that's integrated with Zapier or indeed Integromat. No, wrong button. Let's go back to the present mode. Let's go to the next slide. So that leads me on nicely to 2 weeks' time, 2nd of March. We'll be talking about how to manage your LinkedIn activity from within your CRM. So demonstrating how you can do that from both Pipedrive through the direct integration, but then also talking about other CRMs, so HubSpot, Zoho. There's numerous other ones that our customers use as well. How you can trigger events from outside of LinkedIn and Dux-Soup and have those remote control actions triggered from within other platforms. So we'll be talking about that in 2 weeks, and I'll be showing you how to build a couple of those things within Zapier and Integromat, so you can see how the pieces all fits together and where the data goes, and etc., etc. I've been talking for plenty long enough. Jin, do we have any questions?
Hello, and yes, we do. Thank you for the webinar. It was very insightful. So we have a first question would be where we can find social index number and if it's available with Recruiter.
I'm not sure if it's available with Recruiter. I can show you mine. Let's have a look. If I go to my Sales Navigator account, if I click on my profile picture here, and I go down here, I've got my social selling index button here. I don't have Recruiter, so I can't say whether it's available on Recruiter or Recruiter Lite, so apologies. If you click on there, this is your social selling index. Now I've seen all sorts of scores from, I think the highest I've seen is about 78 or 80, and I've seen down to sort of 30 something as well, and everything in between as well. But yeah, there's all sorts of literature available on LinkedIn as to how you can boost this, what activities would result in an increase in your social selling index. Yeah, that's where you can look at it. You go to your profile photo and your social selling index. One thing to be aware of, just if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, then feel free to. You'll find me hopefully quite easily if you do a search for Dux-Soup or indeed my name on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me. Quite happy to connect with users of LinkedIn, with users of Dux-Soup on LinkedIn. But yeah, your social selling index. Within Sales Navigator, that's how you get to it. I don't know about Recruiter, apologies. That's not massively helpful, apologies, but yeah, that's where you can find it.
Thank you. Another question, would you be able to show how to manage or filter down to a specific region? So for example, in a certain state in the United States?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Now you can do this in, let's have a look. If we do, I mean, the easiest one to show is probably here in Sales Navigator. I'll try and have a look in a second in standard LinkedIn as well. But if you go to the geography option here, so if, for example, I don't know, we want to filter down to Texas, so you can go down to Texas, but then you can also break down within various areas within Texas. So maybe if you wanted to look at Dallas, you can do that there within Sales Navigator. I'm not so familiar with the search criteria here. Let's just have a look in standard LinkedIn. We go to Manager, and if we look at people, And then we'll go to all filters, because that's probably the best place. And then we'll say here, we'll say, well, what location do we want to let's go there. That might be easier. You literally just type in Texas, and then you get the same drop-down list as we had in Sales Navigator. So maybe you want to look at Austin, Texas, and then yeah, you would then get a breakdown of against your criteria. I mean, I've still got a far too big a result here, but I've only put a one word search in there. If, for example, I change that now to just second degree connections, there we go. That's a slightly more realistic search result. Still too many for standard LinkedIn, but perfectly okay for within Sales Navigator in this case. And in a second, the Dux-Soup icon will turn green and recognize this as a list. I can now process against this list here. Yeah, so that's how you just go to the location option, type in where you want, and you can actually add more than one. So you can add multiple locations, depending on how big your search result is and how you want to narrow down your criteria.
Thank you. Yes. Do you know what is the limit for searches?
I don't know exactly what the limits are. Do you have an insight into that, Jin? You probably, maybe from a support side, you have a better view of that than I do.
Unfortunately, it seems that it's shifting each year. So some users are saying that they can perform as many searches as they want, and some users, even if they are Sales Navigator users, are saying that they are limited to something like 100 searches. So it's difficult to say at the moment.
Yeah, and one of the things to add to that is we are seeing, more and more communication from people around there's limits to free users in LinkedIn, and it doesn't seem to be structured in any way. It seems to be fairly random. But one of the things to remember is that you can also use Dux-Soup we can use what we call the xray function in Dux-Soup. Probably a good point to look at it. We can use Google to carry out LinkedIn searches, and that doesn't count against your LinkedIn search activity. So you can use the xray functionality here. This opens a new tab, and you can search for a job title here and put in your location here, and then your search result comes up in a Google search result, and that doesn't count against your LinkedIn searches. So that's something else to think about there, to use the xray function. It's all documented on our support pages how to use it as well, but that's a way to sometimes get around the search restrictions within LinkedIn, and it depends on the complexity of the target audience that you're looking at, but that's something to consider as well, to use the xray function that we have within Dux-Soup.
Thank you. Another user is asking if I'm using multiple campaigns with the Pro or Turbo, and I want to track them to see if the people have accepted my connection requests or not. How can I use that? So I recommended the adding tags, but then would you be able to show where how they can check that with the search by tag menu, just basically scanning and showing who has accepted the connection request or not? Because a lot of people don't know that you can actually do a lot via the search by tag menu.
Yeah, so if I very quickly go here and I click on the Dux-Soup icon and I go to the search by tag button, you'll see here a whole host of tags that I've used for testing and demonstrating over the years. If you're using Dux-Soup Pro, and this is something to be aware of, the only system tag that's used is let's zoom in a bit to make it a bit clearer, hopefully. The only tag that's used with Dux-Soup Pro is this one here, the invited tag. So you can only see who you've invited using Dux-Soup Pro. You can't necessarily see who is accepted. With Dux-Soup Turbo, all of these other system tags are used in order to see where your prospects are within your lead generation flow. So if, for example, you are running a campaign, and what I'll do is, if, for example, I just look at everybody who I've tagged with NL for the Netherlands. So if, say, this was a campaign and I wanted to see how many of those have accepted my invite, I could say, well, because I've got Turbo, fortunately, I can say default accepted. I can do a search against that tag there, and I can then see I've got eight people here who have accepted my invite who have that particular tag. So you can see all sorts of different combinations here. If you're using the custom tags to track your campaigns, you can see exactly who you've tagged by using the search button here. And then, yeah, if you've got Turbo, you can see who's accepted and indeed who has responded or had received follow-up messages, etc. With Pro, it's a little bit more complicated. You need to track your tags in a slightly different way and just, keep an eye on who has accepted. And what you can do is, for example, go to your first degree connection list in standard Dux-Soup. So we can go to your connections here. You can go to your connection list here, and you can then, for example, scan this list, and you can start to compile to see exactly, check them off against people who have who you've invited and against various campaigns. And remember, if you open a profile, let's just open a random profile here, you can manually add and remove tags with Dux-Soup. What we see in a second, we'll see the tag. There we go. So we can see here, this is where we can add tags or remove tags manually. So if I, for example, this guy's based in the UK, so I'm going to give him a UK tag, press enter. He's now got the UK tag. So you can add tags to profiles, remove tags manually. So it's quite a useful way to track where you're going. And as I say, as I was going to say, is you can then, if you're wanting to process activities against those people who've accepted or whatever, Dux-Soup recognizes this here as a list. So you can run Dux-Soup from this environment as well with your automated actions. Okay.
Thank you.
That was a long-winded answer, sorry.
Yeah, but very nice one. Thank you. And the last question, so how often should I clear data? Every time I start a new campaign or every time I just visit or scan?
How often should you clear data? That's a good one. I personally, whenever I've downloaded data, I clear my data. So if I just very quickly show you, you can, I need to go on a LinkedIn page in order for this to work. There we go. So when you press the download data button here, then pops up with, you want to download your visit data or your scan data. And of course, there's different data in each bucket, as it were. Whenever I've downloaded my data, I then reset my data so that I don't end up with downloading the same data again and again and again. That's just a habit that I've got into. Also, if you see this figure here getting into, I mean, I've seen some people with 5, 6, 7, 8,000 on there. It can take quite a long time for that data to be downloaded. It can take, 30 seconds, maybe even longer, depending on the speed of your computer, because there's a lot of data being transferred there. So personally, whenever I've downloaded my data, once I've saved it, I then clear my data. But I always download my data before I clear it, because I don't want to miss out on something. I'd rather have more versions of it than less. But yeah, you can clear your data here by pressing that button there, and that would reset your counter to 0. So I'm going to do that now because I've already downloaded that data earlier. There you are. It confirms it's going to clear both my scan data and my visit data. Press OK. That would reset that one then to 0. And then, yeah, now I would be clear to start off with some fresh data, be it scanning or visiting. So before I clear it, I always download it. And whenever I've downloaded it, I try to remember to clear it so I don't end up with duplicate data. Anything else, Jim?
Thank you. So the last question, basically. This is the last one. What should I use Sales Navigator instead of free LinkedIn? And which one is better, and why would it be better if I would use a paid account?
If you have a paid account with LinkedIn, you have the scope to be able to do more on the platform. Sales Navigator, I mean, I think it's quite expensive, but that's my personal view. But if you're using it every day as a sales tool, it's probably a worthwhile investment insofar as it gives you a lot greater opportunity for search criteria. If I just very quickly once again go back to the search criteria here, let's clear everything here a second, and I'll just go to the all filters button here. You can see here the number of filters that you get here within Sales Navigator. Again, let's zoom in just a fraction just to help out here. You can see here a lot more options for filtering in here. So you can choose seniority level, years in the current position, which is very useful. Even search by companies and within a Boolean search within companies here. Company headcount, years of experience, the function, past companies, other filters. So yeah, how long they've been in LinkedIn. Said earlier, the groups one, which is very powerful insofar as you don't need to be a member of a group to be able to search within that group. Posted content keywords. There's all sorts of different filters here that you can use with Sales Navigator, and you get to see more results. So a search result in standard LinkedIn, you only see the first 1,000. Within Sales Navigator, you see the first 2,500. You still get 100 pages, but you get 25 results per page. So yeah, there are a lot of benefits to having a paid account of Sales Navigator. A lot of people who have Sales Navigator still use standard LinkedIn for a lot of their activities, even though they've got a paid account, because they like to try and keep their messaging within the standard environment, because you have 2 mailboxes, and that does add an extra level of complication. And I don't think anybody's truly got their fingers behind how and where the various messages turn up, because depending on whether your target's got Sales Navigator or not, and whether you've got Sales Navigator or not, and whether it's been sent from Sales Navigator or standard LinkedIn, there doesn't seem to be any pattern to where the messages appear. So what you end up with is you end up with 2 separate mailboxes that you need to manage. It's an added complexity, but it's a way that LinkedIn then get you to remain with Sales Navigator once you've signed up, because your messages stay in that mailbox. It seems to be becoming almost a necessity to have Sales Navigator, but there's still an awful lot you can do with free LinkedIn, depending on what activities you're doing. There's a lot of people I speak to who literally just visit profiles. They don't send invites. They wait for people to be notified that they've been viewed by them, and then they connect back. They're doing that a lot more than maybe reaching out with messages. The other benefit of Sales Navigator as well, I guess, would be the in-mail capacity. You have the capability you get so many in-mail credits per month, and you can use that against inviting. And with in-mails, of course, you have a more extensive possibility for messaging. So that's another possible benefit there. But we see all sorts. We see people using Sales Navigator, Recruiter Lite, standard LinkedIn. There's no one size fits all. It very much depends on your personal circumstances and whether the investment is worthwhile. You have to balance that off against your personal choices and your preferences and your priorities. Again, a long-winded answer, I apologize.
Thank you, Giles.
Is that it for questions?
Yes, that's it for now.
All right, just a very quick promotional, and these have been very busy recently. We've had an awful lot of these happening recently. We have both booster sessions and technical sessions available, can be booked via the website. Just noticed we need to update this. This needs to be Zapier and Integromat webhooks. We'll update that one. Booster sessions are primarily for people who are starting out with Dux-Soup, wanting help in getting up and running, familiarizing themselves with the platform, getting their fingers behind the basics, and really sort of, trying to understand how they can put Dux-Soup usage to best use within their personal context. So that's where we set up a booster session with people. Technical session tends to be a more advanced discussion around how we can help you with integrating into other systems, or help you with your automated drip campaigns and that sort of stuff. Had a number of these, both of these recently, and yeah, they're proving very popular at the moment. Yeah, we're here to help. It's like a consultancy. It's just $80 for 1 hour. So yeah, You can book those via the Dux-Soup.com website. The links are all available there. We have our usual page here of useful links, our homepage, our blog page, and our webinars. Every webinar is associated with a blog. So there'll be a blog post associated with this webinar. It'll be available in the next few days, and the webinar will be posted as well. Everyone who's registered will also get the link. We have our YouTube channel, our support pages, where there's the live chat option, which I mentioned earlier, and our very active Facebook group as well. I think that's everything from me. I'm going to hand over to Jin to close off the session. Thank you, everybody, and I'll speak to you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for questions. And if you have any further questions, please get in touch with Dux-Soup support via info@dux-soup.com or via website. We have a live chat too. Thank you so much, and see you next time.